Michael was a charmer, a master of the grand gesture. It was one of the things I'd fallen in love with. But the name on the receipt wasn't a corporate client. It was a woman's name. For Sarah. My heart had done a funny little stutter step, a clumsy dancer on a polished floor. Sarah. My sister. My younger, brighter, more fragile sister. It had to be a mistake. A coincidence. There were a million Sarahs in Chicago. He must have been trying to impress a client named Sarah. Of course. That was it. I'd folded the receipt, tucked it away in the back of my jewelry box and told myself to forget it. But I didn't. I couldn't. It was a splinter under the skin, a constant dull ache of unease. That was 3 months ago. Now the lies were no longer small. They were a web, intricate and sticky, and I was caught in the center, struggling against the silken threads of deceit. Tonight was our anniversary. 10 years. A decade of shared dreams, inside jokes, and the quiet comfort of knowing someone better than you know yourself. Or so I thought. Michael had planned a surprise. He was always planning surprises. It was his way of showing love, of making up for the long hours at the office, the missed dinners, the last-minute business trips. Wear the blue dress, he'd said that morning, his voice a low murmur against my ear, his lips brushing my temple. The one that makes your eyes look like the ocean. I'd smiled, a genuine, happy smile that felt like a relic from a bygone era. I'd worn the blue dress. I'd spent an hour on my hair and makeup, trying to recapture the woman he'd married, the one who hadn't yet learned the bitter taste of suspicion. He'd taken me to a new restaurant, a chic, minimalist place with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The lights of the skyline glittered like a fallen constellation, a breathtaking backdrop for a romantic dinner. But the beauty of it was lost on me. All I could see was the way Michael's eyes kept flicking to his phone, the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes, the way he held my hand with a grip that felt more like a duty than a desire. To us, he'd said, raising his glass of champagne. To 10 more years. I'd clinked my glass against his, the sound a hollow chime in the cavern of my chest. To us. The conversation was stilted, a carefully choreographed dance of pleasantries and feigned interest. We talked about his work, my art, our upcoming vacation to Italy. We were 2 actors playing the roles of a happy couple, and I was starting to forget my lines. The final act came with dessert. A decadent chocolate lava cake with "Happy Anniversary" written in raspberry coulis on the plate. And a small velvet box. My breath caught in my throat. For a wild, hopeful moment I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe the late nights, the hushed phone calls, the scent of a strange perfume on his shirts were all just figments of my overactive imagination. Maybe this was his way of saying, "I love you, only you, always you." I opened the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of white satin, was a diamond necklace. It was exquisite, a delicate chain with a single pear-shaped diamond that caught the light and shattered it into 1,000 tiny rainbows. It was also a lie. A beautiful, expensive, soul-crushing lie. "Michael," I whispered, my voice thick with unshed tears. "It's beautiful. Only the best for my beautiful wife," he said, his voice smooth as silk. But I knew. I knew with a certainty that was as cold and hard as the diamond in my hand. This wasn't for me. This was for her. For Sarah. The other Sarah. The one who was stealing my husband, my life, my future. The drive home was silent. The necklace felt like a lead weight against my skin, a brand of his betrayal. I watched the city lights blur past, my reflection a ghostly image in the window. A woman with haunted eyes and a shattered heart. When we got home I went straight to our bedroom. I took off the necklace, the blue dress, the carefully constructed facade of a happy wife. I put on an old t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants, my armor against the coming storm. Michael came in a few minutes later, loosening his tie, a look of weary satisfaction on his face. He thought he'd done it. He'd played his part, delivered his lines, and now he could relax. "Tired?" he asked, his voice casual. "No," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'm not tired. I'm done." He frowned, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. "Done? What are you talking about?" I walked over to my jewelry box, my movements slow and deliberate. I took out the florist's receipt, the one that had started it all. I held it out to him. "I'm done with the lies, Michael. I'm done with the secrets. I'm done with her." He looked at the receipt, his face paling. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. For the first time in 10 years, Michael, the master of words, the king of persuasion, was speechless. Who is she, Michael? I asked, my voice a low, dangerous whisper. Who is Sarah? He sank onto the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken words and broken promises. And in that silence I knew. I knew that my life as I knew it was over. The tapestry had unraveled, and all that was left were the tangled, broken threads of a love that was never meant to be. The confession came in a torrent of guilt and self-loathing. Her name was Sarah Jensen. She was a junior associate at his firm. Young, ambitious, beautiful. Everything I used to be. Everything I wasn't anymore. He swore it was a mistake. A moment of weakness. A meaningless fling that had gotten out of hand. He'd been unhappy, he said. Stressed. He'd felt neglected, unappreciated. He'd needed someone to see him, to admire him, to make him feel like a man again. The words were like stones, each one a blow to my already bruised heart. I listened in silence, my face a mask of stone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, a silent witness to the demolition of my life. When he was done, he looked at me, his eyes pleading. I'll end it, he said, his voice hoarse. I swear. It's over. It's you I want, Emily. It's always been you. But his words were hollow, empty promises from a man who had already broken the most sacred vow of all. Get out, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. Emily, please. Get out. He left, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I heard the front door close, the sound echoing in the empty house, in the empty spaces of my heart. I was alone. Alone with the ghost of our love, with the wreckage of our marriage, with the bitter taste of betrayal. The next few days were a blur of pain and numbness. I moved through the motions of life like a ghost, haunting the rooms of our once happy home. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just existed, a shell of the woman I used to be. My sister Sarah called every day. Are you okay, Em? She'd ask, her voice laced with concern. You sound distant. I'm fine, I'd lie, my voice a monotone. Just tired. How could I tell her? How could I tell her that my husband, the man she'd always admired, the man she'd always looked up to, was a cheater and a liar? How could I shatter her perfect image of him, of us? So I kept my secret, a poison in my veins, slowly killing me from the inside out. A week after Michael left, a package arrived. A large, flat box addressed to me. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, nestled in a bed of tissue paper, was a painting. A portrait of me. It was stunning. The artist had captured me perfectly, not just my physical likeness but my essence, my soul. The woman in the painting was strong, vibrant, full of life. She was the woman I used to be, the woman I wanted to be again. There was a note attached. I saw this in a gallery in Chicago. It read, "It reminded me of you. Of the woman I fell in love with. The woman I'm so desperate to win back. Please, Emily. Give me another chance. I love you. Michael." The tears I'd been holding back for a week finally came, a flood of grief and anger and a tiny, treacherous flicker of hope. Maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe we could fix this. I called him. He answered on the first ring. "I got the painting," I said, my voice thick with tears. "I meant it, Emily," he said, his voice raw with emotion. Every word. We talked for hours. He begged. He pleaded. He promised. He said all the right things, all the things I so desperately wanted to hear. And I, a fool in love, a woman drowning in a sea of despair, reached for the lifeline he was offering. I agreed to see him. To talk. To try. He came over that night. He brought flowers, my favorite white lilies. He looked tired, broken, but his eyes were clear, his voice steady. He told me everything. The late nights at the office were real, but they were spent with her. The business trips were a lie, a cover for their secret getaways. The expensive gifts, the hushed phone calls, the secrets and the lies. It was all true. But it was over, he swore. He'd ended it. He'd told her it was a mistake, that he loved his wife, that he was going home. He showed me the text messages. The angry, hurt replies from her. The final, desperate plea for him to reconsider. It was real. It was over. He begged for my forgiveness. He got down on his knees, his face buried in my lap, his body racked with sobs. And I, in my infinite capacity for love and forgiveness, in my desperate need to believe in the man I'd married, in the life we'd built, I forgave him. We decided to start over. To go to counseling. To rebuild the trust that had been shattered. It was hard. There were days when the anger and the hurt were so overwhelming I could barely breathe. There were nights when I'd wake up from a nightmare, the image of him with her burned into my brain. But we kept trying. We talked. We cried. We held each other in the dark, two broken people trying to piece together the shattered fragments of our love. And slowly, painstakingly, we began to heal. A month later, my sister Sarah came to visit. She was getting married in a few months and she wanted me to help her with the wedding plans. She was radiant, her face glowing with happiness. She chattered on and on about the dress, the flowers, the venue. I listened, a smile plastered on my face, a knot of guilt in my stomach. I still hadn't told her about Michael. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I didn't want to tarnish her happiness, to cast a shadow over her perfect love story. One afternoon we were in my studio, looking at fabric swatches for the bridesmaids' dresses. Sarah was holding up a bolt of pale blue silk, her eyes shining. "What do you think, Em? Isn't it perfect?" "It's beautiful, Sarah," I said, my voice soft. She turned to me, her smile fading. "What's wrong, Em? You've been so quiet lately. Is everything okay with you and Michael?" The question hung in the air between us, a loaded gun. I took a deep breath, the lie I was about to tell a bitter taste in my mouth. "We're fine," I said, my voice a little too bright. "Just a rough patch. We're working through it." She looked at me, her eyes full of concern. "Are you sure? You can tell me anything, you know that." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to cry on her shoulder, to have her tell me that everything would be okay. But I couldn't. The secret was a wall between us, a wall I'd built myself. That night I had a dream. I was in a dark, empty house. I was calling for Michael, but he didn't answer. I was searching for him, my heart pounding in my chest. I found him in the bedroom. He was with her. They were laughing, their bodies intertwined. And then she turned to me and I saw her face. It was Sarah. My sister. I woke up with a gasp, my body drenched in cold sweat. It was just a dream. A stupid, horrible dream. But the image of Sarah's face, her triumphant smile, stayed with me, a haunting premonition of a betrayal I couldn't yet comprehend. The next day Sarah and I went shopping for her wedding dress. She tried on a dozen different gowns, each one more beautiful than the last. She twirled in front of the mirror, a vision in white lace and silk. "So what do you think?" she asked, her voice full of excitement. "You look beautiful, Sarah," I said, my voice a whisper. "Absolutely beautiful." She smiled, a radiant, happy smile that made my heart ache. Later that day we were having lunch at a small cafe. Sarah was scrolling through her phone, a small smile on her face. "Who are you texting?" asked, my voice casual. "Oh, just a friend," she said, her eyes not meeting mine. A cold knot of dread formed in my stomach. "Anyone I know?" She hesitated for a moment, then shook her head. "No. Just a friend from work." The lie was so blatant, so obvious, it was like a slap in the face. That night I couldn't sleep. The dream, Sarah's lie, the gnawing suspicion in my gut. It was all too much. I got out of bed and went to the living room. I sat on the couch in the dark, the silence of the house pressing in on me. I thought about the florist's receipt. For Sarah. I thought about the painting. A portrait of me, a reminder of the woman I used to be, and then a sudden chilling thought. The gallery. The one in Chicago where Michael had bought the painting. I grabbed my laptop, my hands trembling. I searched for the gallery's website. I found their online catalog. I scrolled through the pages, my heart pounding in my chest. And then I saw it. The painting. My portrait. But it wasn't my portrait. It was a portrait of Sarah. The same pose, the same expression, the same dress. But it was her face, not mine. The artist's name was Daniel. I clicked on his profile. He was a local Chicago artist. His bio said he specialized in portraits of the woman he loved. There was a link to his personal website. I clicked on it. The first thing I saw was a photo of him and Sarah. They were on a beach, their arms around each other, their faces alight with love. The date on the photo was 3 months ago. The same week Michael was in Chicago. The world tilted on its axis. The air was sucked out of my lungs. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't Michael. It was Sarah. My sister. My sweet, innocent, fragile sister. She was the one having the affair. He was the one living a lie. And Michael, he was covering for her. The florist's receipt. The painting. The lies. It was all for her. To protect her. To hide her secret. The betrayal was so immense, so profound, it was like a physical blow. I doubled over, a strangled sob escaping my lips. My sister. My husband. The two people I loved and trusted most in the world. They had conspired against me, lied to me, betrayed me. The web of lies was not Michael's. It was theirs. And I was the fly caught in their sticky, suffocating trap. The confrontation was a storm, a hurricane of rage and grief, and a love so twisted and broken, it was unrecognizable. I waited for them in the living room, the portrait of Sarah propped up on the mantelpiece, a silent testament to their betrayal. They came in together, laughing, their arms linked. They stopped short when they saw me, their smiles freezing on their faces. "Emily," Michael said, his voice cautious. "What's going on?" I didn't answer. I just pointed to the painting. Sarah's face went white. She looked from the painting to me, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Don't you?" I said, my voice a low, dangerous hiss. "Don't you, Sarah? Or should I call you Sarah Jensen?" The name hung in the air between us, a poisoned dart. Michael took a step forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Emily, let me explain." "Explain what?" I shrieked, my voice cracking. "Explain how you lied to me. How you covered for her. How you let me believe you were the one having an affair, just to protect your precious little secret." The words poured out of me, a torrent of pain and anger. I told them everything. The receipt, the painting, the lies, the dream. When I was done, there was a dead silence in the room. Sarah was crying, her body shaking with sobs. Michael looked like he'd been punched in the gut. "I'm so sorry, Sarah whispered, her voice choked with tears. "I never meant to hurt you." "You never meant to hurt me?" I laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "You slept with a married man, Sarah. You lied to me. You betrayed me. But you never meant to hurt me." "I love him, Emily," she said, her voice pleading. "I love him so much." "He's not yours to love," I screamed. "He's married. He has a wife. A wife who loves him, who trusts him, who would have done anything for him." The fight went on for hours, a brutal, bloody battle of words and tears. Secrets were revealed, lies were exposed, and hearts were shattered. I learned that Sarah had met Daniel a year ago at a conference in Chicago. They'd had an instant connection, a passionate, all-consuming affair. She'd been trying to end it, she said. She knew it was wrong. But she couldn't. She was in too deep. Michael had found out by accident. He'd seen a text message on her phone. He'd been furious, he said. He'd told her to end it, to tell her fiancé to come clean. But she'd begged him not to. She was scared. She didn't want to lose everything. So he'd helped her. He'd covered for her. He'd lied for her. He'd done it because he loved her, he said. Because she was his sister and he would do anything to protect her. But in protecting her, he had destroyed me. The storm finally passed, leaving behind a trail of wreckage and devastation. Sarah left, her face stained with tears, her engagement ring on the coffee table. Michael stayed, a ghost in the ruins of our home. We didn't talk. There was nothing left to say. The next morning I packed a bag. I took my car keys, my wallet, and the shattered pieces of my heart. I drove for hours with no destination in mind. I just needed to get away, to escape the suffocating weight of their betrayal. I ended up in a small town by the ocean, a place where no one knew my name, where the sound of the waves was a constant, soothing rhythm. I rented a small cottage on the beach. I walked for miles, the sand cool beneath my feet, the salt spray on my face. I thought about my life, about the choices I'd made, about the woman I had become. I thought about Michael, about the love we'd shared, about the man I thought I knew. I thought about Sarah, about the sister I'd lost, about the bond that had been broken beyond repair. And I cried. I cried for the love I'd lost, for the trust that had been shattered, for the family that had been torn apart. A week later, Michael found me. He showed up at my door, his face haggard, his eyes full of a pain that mirrored my own. He didn't say anything. He just held me, his arms a safe harbor in the storm of my grief. We talked for hours, not as husband and wife, but as two people who had loved and lost, who were trying to find their way back to each other, to themselves. He told me he had been a fool. He had been so focused on protecting Sarah, he hadn't seen the damage he was doing to me, to us. He told me he loved me, that he had always loved me, that he would spend the rest of his life trying to earn back my trust, my forgiveness. I didn't know what to say. The hurt was still too raw, the betrayal too deep. But as I looked into his eyes, I saw a glimmer of the man I had fallen in love with, the man who had been my best friend, my partner, my everything. And I knew in that moment that our story wasn't over. It would be a long, hard road. There would be scars. There would be ghosts. But there would also be love. A different kind of love. A love that had been tested and broken and forged in the fires of betrayal. A love that was stronger, more resilient, more real than anything we had ever known before. We left the cottage by the sea, hand in hand, two survivors of a shipwreck, ready to face the long, uncertain journey home. The ending was not happy. It was not sad. It was just real. It was the bittersweet, messy, complicated reality of love and life and the enduring power of the human heart to heal, to forgive, and to love again. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left, and thank you for watching.